This review is something I've been looking forward to for a very long time. I've been receiving requests to do a GHK review for years, and throughout those years, I've met a total of 2 people in my state that run GHK gas blowbacks. Then suddenly, Airsoft GI sends this to me. A rifle I've had on my wish list since it released. This is the GHK AUG A2 gas blowback rifle. The one and only gas blowback AUG or AUG. A rifle that I wished long ago would become a reality. And now I get to go over it and see if GHK is really worth the hype. Like I said, this is all because of Airsoft GI who sent me this awesome piece, so be sure to leave links down below in the description so you can get one of these rifles for yourself or some other GHK stuff. So now with all that read and said, let's get into where we always begin with the unboxing. So to be honest, this box is a little underwhelming for something that costs $400 to $450. I don't really care that it's not too flashy, it's just a box really, but a flimsy styrofoam tray? That's it? I guess it worked since nothing in here is damaged, but I would have liked to see something a little bit better for the price that you have to pay to get one of these. Actually, hearing that it's common to get paintball guns in hard cases when you buy them makes me wish that we could get the option to order some high-end guns with a hard case from the manufacturer, like as an upgrade option. Moving along though, we get a pretty standard package with the AUG clearly visible, as well as a manual that is kind of basic. It'll just go over the controls and breakdown, not much else. Then we get a speed loader with a special plastic tip to make quick work of loading this 30 round green gas magazine. This magazine is wrapped in a plastic shell, but it's still pretty hefty and in no way is flimsy or cheap. Remember the G&G GTP9 that we just reviewed last time? Well, this is pretty much the GTP9 if it was compressed down into a magazine. Now, taking all this stuff and the GHK AUG out of this weightless shell of a box, we can see that the AUG itself is not as weightless. Let there be no doubt, this is probably the best feeling gas blowback rifle I've ever felt in my over 5 years of playing Airsoft. This is pretty much on the same tier as LCT AEGs, if not slightly better. Boasting a weight of 7.4 pounds, the construction of all the metal parts and even the gritty and thick polymer parts is exceptional. The weight is well dispersed and balances behind the trigger guard thanks to the bullpup nature of this replica. Nothing that shouldn't move won't. Nothing creaks or bends, even in the thinnest places, and yes, the folding grip is also sturdy and almost completely free of any wobble, unlike every other AUG in the airsoft world. This is almost in the very small class of airsoft guns that you could probably hurl through a car window without having to worry about it. I say almost because despite the metal feeling great and solid, it's still aluminum and not steel, unlike the LCT G3 that I should stop comparing this rifle to. But all this stunning quality comes at a cost, with the rifle running for around $400 to $450 for this model and around $420 to $470 for the more tactical railed variant. Even the magazines can cost $45 to even $60, depending if you want a standard 30 round green gas magazine or a 36 round CO2 magazine. So let's say you want to run this gun, but you don't want to get a whole set of like 12 magazines. You just want 5 green gas magazines for about $50 each. Then of course you order the rifle. Well, you'll be dropping about $650 for a setup like that. That's not terrible to everyone out there, but I just want to make it known that you better have some kind of income going on if you want to run something like this. Starting up front on the GHK AUG A2, we get this really ugly plastic orange flash hider for the US models. Compared to everything else that this replica is made out of, this part is completely out of place, even for an airsoft gun. And to throw salt in the wound, it looks like everyone else living outside the United States will get a proper AUG flash hider when they receive their GHK AUG. That's pretty painful, but at least this stupid flash hider is held on by just a grub screw that comes off pretty easily to expose a set of 14mm counterclockwise threads for whatever muzzle devices you'd like to replace this piece of shit with. Moving down this 20-inch barrel that surrounds a 455mm inner barrel that runs to the very end of the outer barrel, we get the famous folding grip that is notorious for always being wobbly upon arrival. Just like the rest of the plastic exterior parts, this is built very nicely and only bears very minimal wobble that can be passed off as no wobble. To deploy it, you'll need to use a little bit of muscle to pull it outward from the rifle before letting it snap into one of these spots, either at a 45 or a 90-degree angle, if not just all the way up against the barrel. Leave it to GHK to do the impossible and actually make this grip a little more stiff than Play-Doh. I'd say they did it better than everyone else out there. Furthermore, in this area, I'm happy to see the eye for detail on the mock adjustable gas dial. Then finally, for the barrel setup, I can show you how to quickly divide this rifle's length by pushing the switch and twisting the barrel assembly before sliding it away from the receiver. This will be great if you need to store the rifle in a small area, or if you wish to throw in a shorter barrel for closer engagements, like the 14-inch and 16-inch outer barrels. But a big downside would be that you'll need to do this breakdown every time when you want to make an adjustment to your hop up. On the bright side, at least you can make an adjustment for whatever weight BBs you're using and just forget about it. But again, on the downside, if you're testing this rifle like I was and you need to dial in the hop up for ranges with 0.30 gram BBs, you'll be doing this rather annoying process over and over again until you get the right amount of hop. At least the dial itself is nice and stiff. Putting the GHK AUG back together and checking out the bolt and charging handle, we don't get anything super special or unexpected here. But having to use the charging handle never gets old, especially if you want to throw in a little bit of an HK slap on it. It's a gas rifle, so just have fun with it. The A1 AUG that this rifle resembles more than the A2 is void of a bolt release, so keep in mind you'll need to rack the bolt to get back into the action after the bolt locks back on an empty magazine. And this is the only major control that is not ambidextrous on the AUG. The rest of the controls that are crafted from the same thick polymer plastic that the black body is made out of are very stiff and will need to be worn in just a bit to loosen up, but they still work great. I've messed with a couple real style AUGs in real life, and in my experience, these buttons are actually more stiff than the real rifles. The fire selector / safety works as follows. All the way to the right with white exposed for safe, in the middle for semi only, which will be very useful for a lot of fields and possible CQB arenas, and all the way to the left with red fully exposed to activate the dual stage trigger. This will give you the ability to fire this bullpup rifle on semi with half a pull of the trigger and full auto with a full pull on the vertically textured serrated trigger. I really like this trigger. The brake was easy to find and use, but yep, the hammer striking without a round to fire sounds really pathetic. I know that really doesn't matter as long as it still strikes the gas valve, but still, listen to this. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Sounds pretty good, right?
Yeah. It sounds like a little wimpy.
It's really pathetic, right? But this thing is really good on all the other aspects, but
It sounds like a little wimp.
for the magazine release, I'd recommend that you really pull the magazine out with some authority, unless either you sand down the mag well from the inside to make tack reloads much easier, or sand down the outer plastic of the magazine. I like that the mag well is tight on the AUG magazine because there is no wobble at all here. But there is such a thing as too much of a good thing, but every gun is slightly different, so this might not be a problem at all for you. Of course, your metal sling points are on clear display for you to use with any sling you'd like to, and yes, they are durable and trustworthy. But to take the rifle apart, you'll need to punch this rear sling point out and punch out this thick plastic block. Everything slides out nicely for the most part, making lubing, inspections, and maintenance easy enough, and I didn't find any weak looking parts from what I can see here. It was very nice to see the realism in the breakdown, and I liked how these two pieces were made from higher quality rubber than most other airsoft manufacturers offer with their AUG replicas. This makes for a great rest when shouldering the rifle, and switching what ejection port you want covered is effortless. Just know if you don't close off the right port and you shoot this gun, you will get blasted in the face with some gas. Not covering any of the ports does look awesome though when you mag dump this AUG. Then finally, we have probably the most iconic part the AUG A1 offers, the 1.5 power scope. To be honest, I couldn't find a set answer if this was a 1.5 power scope like the real rifle offers, or if this was a 2 times power scope. I hear both mentioned in a lot of reviews, but I'll say that's a 1.5 power sight since most people say so. Regardless, this scope that's mounted onto the upper receiver bears the donut sight that we all expect it would have. Thank you GHK for not taking any creative liberties with this sight and just leaving the original reticle alone. I appreciate it. The sight is fully adjustable for windage and elevation with these dials, however GHK didn't include the tool needed to make these adjustments. They can still be done, but I'd say that this was a bit of an oversight. But if all else fails, then you do have these last ditch unadjustable iron sights up top that are unpainted and hardly stand out like the real sights do. Pray that you never have to use these. So altogether, I can easily say this is the best AUG so far that I've ever handled out of the Classic Army, the ASG, the APS, and even the Tokyo Marui models. Yes, I said that. This feels better than all of them by far. Weight isn't too overbearing, the fun factor is of course there, but yeah, that flash hider is killing me. I would have also liked to have just a normal, down-to-earth OD Green A1 with the proper scope. I have no idea why this wasn't done in the first place. But how does this so-called A2 version perform at the chronograph? Well, shooting a couple shots with a fully gassed magazine and some .2 gram BBs, we got some readings that wouldn't work for most CQB arenas in the United States. I expected as much though, since I hear that GHKs normally shoot a bit hot, but I didn't get any readings around 380 feet per second or above. I wouldn't recommend that you use .2 gram BBs though, at least use .30 gram BBs and above. With those .30 gram BBs, you'll see readings like these. I've got weights from .30s to 48s I think, thanks to High Power Airsoft, so I'm pretty grateful for them. Shoutouts go to High Power Airsoft for sure. At the range with a bottle of .32 gram BBs from High Power Airsoft and a topped off magazine, I was really impressed. 150 feet with this rifle will be no problem, and it looks like even at that range, my shots still have a little bit of power to them, but I don't have 200 feet available to me, so I can only assume better results would happen if I had more range to show off. I'm sure that GHK owners will chime in the comments down below on what their rifles can achieve, including how great their rifles are on gas consumption, because this rifle is pretty amazing in those regards as well. With a pretty big bolt like this one, I wouldn't expect much more than maybe 40 to 50 shots with a single gas fill. But I got 71 shots off with my first gas fill and 73 shots with the second gas fill. That's pretty good for a gas rifle with the full travel bolt, and only the last 3 shots showed any hint of running low on gas. So would I recommend this rifle if money isn't an object to you? Yes, absolutely. Range was great for a gas gun, and even compared to a lot of other AUGs I've tested. Chronograph readings were pretty consistent, build quality was stellar, and uniqueness is also great since this is probably the only one I've ever seen in my state of Texas, and this GHK AUG has been out for more than 3 years. I would have liked to see a more proper A1 model with the OD green stock, and I mentioned the cheap flash hider enough already. And I really wish that GHK would come forward with an H-bar barrel kit and maybe some 40 round extended magazines. I know it would just be all for looks, but an H-bar AUG that's gas blowback just sounds really awesome to me. This rifle is definitely something I wish I had bought for myself a long time ago, and this should be seen as probably one of my most positive reviews. It performed well, it felt like a high quality product, and at the very end of the list of pros, this is a loud gas bullpup gun with a thunderous recoil to it that never gets old. But is it all really worth the price tag that these sell for? Do you personally think that it's still just all hype and nothing else? What could have made this gun better in your opinion? I know a lot of you guys wanted me to review this gun as soon as I unboxed it, so I expect a lot of comments on this review. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this rifle, but I really have to thank Airsoft GI for sending me this awesome GHK. Be sure to check out the description for all the links you'll need to check out this piece and maybe get one for yourself. I'll even add links to other GHK rifles that I'm interested in. But I think that's pretty much all I have to say, so let's check out some shooting because that's probably what you guys are waiting for. But until the next video drops from the city of San Antonio, this has been Scott Hollenbeck, and I'll be sure to see you all next time.
ran out of gas, but it's still locked back. How much do we have left? Just a little bit.